Hey guys, welcome back to Rocket Can, my fellow space tubers. Today we are going to see another Starlink mission, and as of all Starlink missions, this would be a routine mission for SpaceX, but for us, this is always very interesting. I mean, the views which we get and everything are always interesting for every launch. So, um, we will get into it. So if you don't know, today there were two flights which was supposed to happen, and first one was the Starlink mission and the other one was the SN15 one, but the SN15 was unfortunately scrubbed due to some I don't know due to what what happened. But here we are on the May 4th, as they say, May the 4th be with you. We are here to see the Starlink mission. So talking about the mission profile is as it is, as you can see here, as usual, which we are which we see every time: ascent, stage separation, flip maneuver, pairing, payload separation, entry burn, and then landing. Everything is good. Okay, so we, for this mission, we will be having two stage two means two second stage in ignition, and the Starlink deploy time is around t plus 1 hour 3 minutes. So that is the thing which we have to uh, you know they say about. Hi Louis Smith, hi Shashank Desai, how are you? Yep, may the fourth be with you. Talking about some mission milestones which will happen today. First of all, guys, this is the the ninth flight of the booster, of which actually the booster which is supporting this mission. So this will be the ninth flight of that booster, which is the second record which they will SpaceX will make, because they already have successfully landed one booster which was which actually flown for the ninth time. So this is the second time they are doing, and this is the oldest booster in the lineup which they have. So this is the oldest one, and this booster will be flying today. So this is the thing which we have to see. um what else we have here? I don't think so we do have any other thing which we have to see, although we the turnaround time for this mission was around 61 days. And just a sec. Okay, okay, do have this thing for you so that you also can see this thing. Just a sec. Where is it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, here you go. Okay, so this is the thing, the booster, powered by the booster tracker, as they say. Shout out to them. And this will be the okay, so this is not the one which we are looking for. This is a crew 2 mission. Okay, just a sec. We don't have the updated one, but okay. Okay, we what we know is that only that this time the booster which is flying today is the oldest one, and yeah, that is the significant milestone which they will be achieving today. Other than that, talking about the fairing half, so the fairing half they are using is the one of them is has flown previous time, and the other half is new. So that is the thing with the fairing. Currently weather is 80% go for the launch, and I think they will be going in for the mission today, which, because we do have the stream, the mission control audio, as they say. So let's just hear that. I always wanted to hear some mission control audio in the stream until and unless we have the official webcast. So we can, I think, go with that. Otherwise, the updates are as such that we have go for the prop load, and everything is looking good till now. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can surely ask me. Otherwise, we can look into the booster and the Falcon 9 vehicle. I mean, we have seen this vehicle for so many times. I mean, we don't even have to know about it. Many people just, treat this vehicle as the go-to version. I mean, the Uber to the space, as they say. But this is a costlier one, uh, not as much um, affordable, but yes, SpaceX is working on for that. So this is 70-meter tall, 4 tons to Mars, and 24 tons to 22.8 tons to Leo. This is the configuration for the expandable version. Otherwise, it's around 15 tons to Leo, if I'm not wrong, in the reusable version. The first stage consists of the 9 Merlin engines. And guys, the development of the Falcon 9 has stopped now. I mean, they have tested some of the things. I mean, if you remember, there was one launch in which they tested uh, the Falcon 9 booster against the strong winds. If you remember that, I mean, they landed onto the drone ship. That was bullseye, and everything was nominal, but they exceeded the parameter to test the limits of the booster, and that too they did with the not with the new booster but with the older one. I don't remember which was that. I mean, it was it for the 7th or 8th or 9th flight, I don't remember that, but yeah, they pushed the limits. Other than that, I don't think so we have any other major update since block 5, as the Elon said that he has to stop the Falcon 9 development now because they have to focus on the Starship development. So yeah, that is the case. And major okay, so the minor changes could happen in which sometimes they find there is some issue during the launch sequence, when they have to abort because of because of some issue with the vehicle also. So to mitigate some issues, they can have some design changes or some mitigation techniques. I mean, checking that parameter during the countdown timeline. Those are the smaller changes which could be done to the vehicle, but right now nothing else we have. And yeah, the landing legs are there, the second stage. Okay, so guys, did you see that image which the crew 2 astronaut actually tweeted out, in which you were able to spot the Falcon 9 second stage in space? That was so cool, so cool image to have. If you haven't seen, I mean, I can try to have it for you. So this is the interstage with the grid fins. The payload is the Starlink satellites, and the engine. Okay, so engine is runs on RP1 and LOX. We can see that it runs on gas generator cycle because of this um, thing here. And vacuum. This is also runs on LOX and RP1, but this one has a longer bell, which we all know should be having that. Just a sec. If we do have any other updates, let me see. Doesn't seem to be there. Okay, I can pull on that image which the crew 2 astronaut actually took. uh, I don't yeah, here we go. Do we have the image? Do we a good image here? Come on, man, this he tweets a lot. Okay. uh Come on, come on, come on. I can't find it right now. uh when was the crew to mission, I suppose? Okay, here we have some photos of the in the dragon. Yeah, here we go, finally. So I can change to that. Here you go. So this is the image which he tweeted, Thomas Pesquet. And can you guys spot the Falcon 9 second stage here in this image? Um, if you can, just tell me, because I can very well see the from here. If you want, I can I mean increase the size too, but you should be able to see it without increasing also. So okay, let me just tell you, this is the second stage here. This is the second stage here. uh can you see it now properly? Okay, and this is a very high quality image which we can see here, and this is the second stage. Come on, where is it? Yeah, here you go. So this looks, from the image, this is also a very interesting image to see, because from the image we can actually get a size of how big the nozzle of the second stage is. I mean, you can very well see that from the image, it is almost half the size of the Falcon 9 second stage. This is how big the nozzle is. We can't see that, I mean, we can't refer to that size in the streams because of how the camera angles are positioned, and also we don't have any reference to have this estimate of the size. So here we have, and we can very well see it here. This is very big, and this is a shot which he got in space, looking down from the Crew Dragon. So this was a very lucky shot, as he said he got. And yeah, the earth is fully mesmerizing from behind, which we can all see here. So yep, that is the case, and these are some inside views of the Crew Dragon. Okay, so this image also was very much circulated because of this thing here. If you can see it, uh, see this thing. Okay, so this is how the uh, toilet looks like in the Crew Dragon. This is the section of it. I think this is a pipe in which we have the emoji, obviously, and these are some of the toilet setup instructions, which we can't read, obviously, but the thing which we can read is the toilet setup. And this was very well circulated for obvious reasons. I mean, considering the size of the Crew Dragon and how much astronauts it can accommodate, it is very interesting how do they manage these sanitary issues. I mean, there is no private section in the capsule, right? All of them are there. And so how do they manage to you know pee or manage their business in front of everybody? That is a thing which actually is interesting to think about, and is the thing which I don't know the answer to. So that is the thing. Yes, lab rat. So, or do we have anything right now? Okay, we do have the stream. We'll switch over to that, but yeah, I don't know how do they manage it, but yes, that is the thing. There is a curtain for privacy, and the rest is really just technicalities. Let's just say the only advantage is the view. Exactly. Okay, so there is a curtain for privacy, but where is the curtain and how do they pull out and how do they make a section? That is a very interesting thing to think about. Okay. What else do we got? Obviously some shots inside the Crew Dragon here, in which astronauts can be seen hanging around and enjoying the views, as they say. And guys, do you means can you just see how buffy the astronauts looks like on the, you know, the upper part of the body? I mean, every astronaut you see looks like he's doing some kind of, you know, um, what do I say? The chest is all puffed up for everyone, for every astronaut, and that is, you know, there is one thing which we called the fluid shift, which happens in space. This happens because it does, the blood, the veins does not have to deal with the gravity, so they actually and excessively push all the blood to the chest and to the head, and that's why we, you know, seem to have every astronaut seem to be puffed up when they go to the station or to the space. So that is the phenomena which happens. And if you ever wonder why do every astronaut looks puffed up, that is the case, because they have what we called fluid shift.
And on your screen is a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 3:01 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. My name is Shiva Bharadwaj. I'm a space operations engineer, and I'm joining you from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. And what you're watching a live webcast for our 10th Starlink mission of 2021 and our 26th Starlink mission overall. Now, if you're curious, Starlink is a satellite internet constellation designed and manufactured by SpaceX that can provide high-speed, low-latency people living in remote and rural areas across the globe. To date, over 500,000 people have placed an order or put down a deposit for Starlink. And with every launch, we get closer to connecting more people across the world. Starlink is the world's largest satellite constellation, made possible with the help of our Falcon 9 orbital class reusable rocket. And today will actually mark SpaceX's 115th launch of a Falcon 9. Now, if you've been following along, it's been a really busy year for us here at SpaceX. So far, we've had 16 launches in 2021.
You know, whosoever wants to look puffed up instantly, they can book a ride to the space and go to the space, and you will actually get some photos being all muscly and all like that.
And a little bit later in the broadcast, we'll be sharing more details about their return flight. Now, just under T-minus 10 minutes to go. All systems are currently go. Why don't we take a closer look at the Falcon 9? You're looking at a live view of Falcon 9. That's our two-stage rocket. It's over 70 meters tall. That's greater than the wingspan of a 747 aircraft. And for all of you Star Wars fans out there, happy Star Wars Day. If you weren't aware, Falcon 9 was actually named after the Millennium Falcon. Now, Falcon 9 is twice the height of a Millennium Falcon, but that number 9 indicates the number of Merlin 1D engines on the first stage, which is that bottom two-thirds section of the vehicle. With the help of 9 Merlin engines, its objective is to accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to space, and then it will separate from the rest of the vehicle about 2.5 minutes into flight. From there, it'll make its way back to Earth and target a landing on a recovery vessel named Of Course I Still Love You, which is stationed off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. Now you can tell from
Thank you so much, Louis Smith, for that 1.49 euros super sticker. Really helps. Thank you so much for your contribution.
The 82nd recovery of an orbital class rocket. On top of the first stage is our black carbon fiber inner stage. On top of that is Falcon 9's second stage. It has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine that will ignite shortly after the first stage separates. Now, it's the second stage that will carry our stack of Starlink satellites to orbit, and then we'll deploy those satellites just after the T+1 hour mark. Our satellites are safely enclosed inside the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which is this nose cone structure at the top of the rocket. Its job is to protect the payload from aerothermal loads, heating, and contamination during the ascent phase. Now, once we reach the vacuum of space, we'll jettison the fairing as the second stage continues on to orbit.
And we can see very well that one of the fairing half is brand new, and other one is, you know, scotched off, because we can see those re-entry effect as well as the ascent effects on the one of the fairing half, which means that it has been used previously.
looking quite good. So with that, vehicle, satellites, weather, range, all looking good for an on-time liftoff just a few minutes from now. Now, if for some reason today during the count, if we're not able to launch, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at 2:39 p.m. Eastern Time. As I mentioned earlier, today we are launching from the historic Launch Pad 39A. This is the same launch pad responsible for sending NASA astronauts to the moon in the 1960s, and more recently, helping bring human spaceflight back to the United States after the conclusion of the Space Shuttle program in 2011. Less than 2 weeks ago, SpaceX launched its third human spaceflight mission with a flight-proven booster and Dragon spacecraft from this very pad. This time, we had 4 crew members on board. Those were NASA astronauts Shane Kimbrough and Megan MacArthur, European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Aki Hoshide. That was the start of the 6-month Crew 2 mission to the International Space Station. And just 8 days later, after spending 167 days in space, the Crew 1 astronauts returned to Earth on Sunday, May 2nd, making their journey the longest duration mission for a US spacecraft since the final Skylab mission in 1974. With NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, and Shannon Walker aboard, as well as JAXA astronaut Soichi Noguchi, Dragon autonomously undocked from the International Space Station at 8:35 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Saturday, May 1st. Spacecraft performed a series of departure burns to move away from the orbiting laboratory. You can actually see here those Draco thrusters firing on the Dragon spacecraft.
They look very cool, right?
We spent a little bit of time in orbit, and then had an opportunity to come back to Earth. The spacecraft re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, deployed its 2 drogue chutes and 4 main chutes in preparation for a soft water landing, and upon splashdown, SpaceX quickly recovered Dragon from the water as well as the Crew 1 astronauts. Now, this was the first nighttime splashdown of a US spacecraft with crew on board since Apollo 8 in 1968. Now, the crew, as you can see, were pretty happy, healthy, and really seemed to enjoy the ride aboard Dragon. It's been a fantastic couple of weeks for the human spaceflight program, and the team here at SpaceX is honored to have been a part of it. Now, we are just at T-minus 5 minutes away from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of its countdown. We're currently awaiting the transporter erector, or TE, retraction. The transporter erector is that structure, the white structure to the left of the vehicle. It provides liquids, gases, and electrical connections to the second stage, as well as air conditioning to the payload. And at about, or just about now, actually, we should start to see the transporter erector beginning.
So this mission, if you have just joined in, guys, let me just tell you that this mission is will be the 9th flight of the booster. So, and this is the record which they already have achieved. This will be very interesting to see because you know, this is the oldest booster in the lineup which they currently have, and I mean, with the time, could there be some issues with the rocket? We'll have to see, but obviously SpaceX must have ensured that there must be, you know, no issues with the rocket at all. So we'll have to see how this rocket performs, how this booster performs, and we can very well see the fairings also. One is new and one has been used previously. So yep, that is the case.
Oxidizer. It forms those white clouds around the rocket as it comes into contact with the moist Florida atmosphere. We're constantly topping up the propellant in these final minutes until liftoff, and those small oxygen vents overboard form these clouds. There's transporter erector retracting to that 2-degree position. Coming up in about 15 seconds, we should hear a call out for prop loading complete on the first stage.
We are like T-minus 3 minutes until the liftoff. Weather is looking very good for the... Okay. For the launch, and
coming up shortly after that will actually be a call out for the second stage completing its prop loading. Expect that call around T-minus 2 minutes. You can see a little bit of the wind there. Still gentle enough for ascent today. Now, after T-minus 2 minutes, the next activity will be at T-minus 60 seconds. That's when Falcon 9 will transition into startup. That's when Falcon 9's internal flight computers will take over the countdown until essentially through the rest of the mission. Again, next activity here is prop load closeout on the second stage.
So we are T-minus 2 minutes until the launch. Everything is looking good. Weather is looking good. We are...
Locked and fuel load is complete.
Okay.
But that Falcon 9, from a prop perspective, is ready to go. Team still not working any issues on Falcon 9. That venting you're seeing there is nominal. Again, that's liquid oxygen from the transporter erector.
Being cleared
In the
out.
lines in the transporter erector that we're venting, and as it comes into contact with the warm Florida atmosphere, turns into a gas and humidify and forms clouds with the humidity in Florida.
Okay, this is coming into picture, guys.
Coming
We
up,
are now
transition into startup. Shortly after, we'll hear the final poll from the launch director, giving their go for launch.
T-minus 1 minute until the launch.
Flight computers in startup.
Sit tight, relax, and enjoy the launch. Man, this is looking good. Would be very,
Falcon 9 Starlink LD is go for launch.
yeah, go for the launch. And
Fantastic
it would be
news.
good to
So with
see
that,
how
launch
this rocket
teams in the
performs.
vehicle looking healthy.
Considering
ready to go
this
for
is
launch.
the oldest booster in the
T-minus 30
lineup.
seconds to go. Why don't we listen in to the terminal
T-minus 30
count
seconds.
for Falcon 9 taking our Starlinks to orbit.
Minus 20, 19, 18, 17, 16,
T-minus
15,
15 seconds.
14, 13, 12, 11.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
And
And liftoff. May the force be with us.
before we did
Stage 1 chamber pressures are nominal.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
this is, the day shot, the most epic thing about the day shot is the tracking camera. We can very well get the views of the rocket, and I just love these views. Oh. We are T plus 30 seconds into the launch. Max Q is coming up next.
T plus 40 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from our pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, carrying a
Nominal
stack of
power into launch.
Starlink satellites into orbit. Coming up, we have just throttled down for the point of maximum dynamic pressure, or max Q. That's when we experience the highest structural loads on the vehicle. That's from the combination of how fast we're moving through the Earth's atmosphere,
Falcon
we-
9 is supersonic.
And we
increasing
can
our
actually
velocity
see the
density of the
pitching
atmosphere,
maneuver
continuing to
happening here. We can very well see that the rocket is being tilted, and we can see the launch complex in behind,
Q.
and the vehicle has crossed max Q, and those are the clouds which we can see here. Wow.
Upcoming in about a minute, we'll have 3 events happening back to back. First of those will be main engine cutoff, or MECO. That's where we will shut down all
those
9 of those
clouds.
Merlin 1D engines to slow down the vehicle in preparation for stage separation. That's the next event
MVAC
where the
engine chill
first
has started.
and second stages will separate. Stage 1 starting to make its way back down to landing. And stage 2 will continue on with the third event, second engine start number 1, or SES1. That's where the Merlin vacuum engine will ignite and then continue to propel the second stage along with the payload.
I must say that these views are the most beautiful onboard cameras views which we have got during the ascent.
On the Merlin vacuum
Wow.
to prepare it for the full flow of when we perform second engine start. So coming up shortly, about 2.5 minutes into flight, main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, and then shortly after, second engine start number 1.
Exactly, lab rat. the wider it gets because of the lower pressure as they ascend into the sky and out to the space. We have MECO and stage separation confirmed.
Separation confirmed.
And we have ignition.
Left-hand side of your screen, you can see a view from the first stage, interstage, grid fins starting to deploy. Second engine start complete on the right-hand side, that glow of the Merlin vacuum engine. Shortly, we'll see fairing deployment.
Fairing separation confirmed.
View from inside the fairing halves, you can see them separating
Wow.
away from the vehicle. Now, as a reminder, we will be recovering
We
that.
can
Oh,
see
awesome.
those.
You can see a view there of one of the fairing halves from going on back to Earth for recovery. As a reminder, we will be attempting to recover both halves with a contracted vessel named Sheila Bordelon.
Exactly. Because actually
First
they
stage,
have
left-hand side of your screen, grid fins are fully deployed at this point. Those periodic bursts of white gas that you see are from
actually
our attitude
guys
control system.
if you don't know they won't be catching the fairings
So the
from now
attitude control
onwards.
system giving some small
They are
pumps of
actually they will be
nitrogen gas,
recovering it from the water,
reorienting the
fishing out it
stage to
from
get
the
the
water.
engines down
So that's why they have
and
changed the
chilled
names
down
also for the
for its
recovery
upcoming events.
vessels.
Second stage burn continuing to look nominal.
Second stage is looking good. The first stage are providing awesome views, and everything
Now
is
the,
proceeding
Acquisition
as per the
signal
plan.
Bermuda.
While the second stage is continuing on to orbit, first stage has a couple of activities in order to make its way back to Earth. First is an entry burn. It'll ignite 3 of its M1D or Merlin 1D engines. And that helps to slow down the vehicle as we start re-entering the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. The next event will be just before touchdown on the drone ship. That is a landing burn. We'll ignite just a single center Merlin engine, and that's what will bring the vehicle speed rapidly down to 0 for a soft touchdown on the drone ship. You can see the first stage reorienting on the left-hand side of your screen.
Both stages continue to follow nominal trajectories.
Fantastic news from the navigation officer.
Labrat, they
We're
do
on our
have
planned
one camera
trajectories.
on the fairings half, although they don't have that communication link to
The photo for
download
stage
the
is
views,
targeting our
because
drone ship being
they have
station
the GoPro installed on it, but they record it on the drive present on the fairing itself. So, or you can say the storage of the camera itself. Whenever they recover and if the views are good, we have seen one video of the fairing halves also, the journey of the fairing halves back to the Earth. We have seen that SpaceX have released that video too.
The vehicle. Those are more important once we get into the Earth's atmosphere. We use those to guide and direct the first stage towards our drone ship. And so as we start getting more atmosphere,
and now the first stage has reached apogee, and now it is falling back to the Earth. We can see the speed increasing, and when the entry burn will start, we can very well see the speed to kind of decrease and then again increase and then decrease. That's how it works.
First stage entry burn. That burn expected to last about 20 seconds. We'll be igniting 3 of the Merlin engines on the first stage to slow down the vehicle in preparation for atmospheric entry.
Stage 1 flight termination system has saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
You can see the plume of the Merlin 1 engines getting pushed back from how fast the stage is moving, rapidly decelerating.
And now let's
Stage
hope
1 entry burn shutdown.
we don't lose the view from the first stage.
The successful shutdown of
Both
those Merlin
stages continue
1D.
to follow nominal trajectories.
Successful shutdown of those Merlin 1D engines. Next burn on the
Looking
first stage
good.
will be at just after T+8 minutes. That'll be the landing burn start, just a single
Till now we
Merlin
haven't.
engine there. And around the time that the
Okay.
first stage should touch down on our drone ship, the second stage will also conclude its burn with an event called seco 1, or secondary engine cutoff number 1.
Stage 1 transonic.
Stage 1 is transonic.
Call it there for transonic, meaning that we are starting to pick
Oh.
up speed in the Earth's atmosphere, sort of in that in-between range between subsonic and supersonic, meaning faster, supersonic meaning faster than the speed of sound.
We can see the mark effects taking over the Falcon 9 there.
Some beautiful views
Stage
of
2 is in terminal guidance.
planet Earth with our second stage
here we
Merlin
go.
vacuum engine on the right-hand side.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Landing
Startup of
burn,
landing burn.
startup. We can see, and
You can see the drone ship
okay.
on our screen.
Okay, it is a bit off, but I think it will be able to correct itself.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Looks like we're coming right down on target.
Okay, that was cool.
Now listen out here for secondary engine cutoff.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
There's a first stage
Confirmed.
Taken over.
on the left-hand side of your screen. 9th recovery for this
Stage
booster.
2 flight termination system has saved.
82nd
Seco.
successful recovery of an orbital class rocket, and seco called out at the same time, meaning the second stage engine has also shut down. Navigation officer will be doing a check of our
Nominal
trajectory,
parking orbit insertion.
and we are in a nominal orbit. So at that, second stage is going to coast in this orbit for the next about 35 minutes. While that's happening, you can take a look at this animation.
Okay guys, so that was pretty epic, I must say that. And Octagraver says 10 flights. Nope, this was the 9th flight. 10 flight record is still needs to be broken, and hopefully we will see that happening in coming days. Otherwise, yes, it was very close. I think and when it was just landing from the onboard camera, it was looking a bit off, although that's why we have the grid fins and we have the gimbal in the engine, so as to correct for any last minute adjustment. And those grid fins are actually provide a lot amount of turning capability to the booster. Without those grid fins, it would be very much difficult for the booster to, you know, manage its trajectory towards the booster, because we very well know that the trajectory will depend on the weather conditions and the winds and all those things happening in the recovery area. So those are the things which are instantaneous and which can't be fed on the computer. We don't actually know what is the weather there. So the grid fins have the job, if anything the trajectory is going off from what it is intended to go, from where it is intended to go, it usually corrects it by orienting itself, changing the you know, that what do we call that, what is that term, the degrees of freedom. Yes, the degrees of freedom, and orienting the booster and having a good nice touchdown. Although the gimbal does help when the engines have started, otherwise engines are off during the whole descent most of the time, so you can't expect the engine gimbal to correct the trajectory at the very last time. So there must be something some active orientation capability. So yes, that is the case. And if you are wondering, we can do something with the RCS, well, that would also not work, because RCS system is not that powerful, which can actually rotate the rocket when it is falling down inside the atmosphere. Because when it is falling down inside the atmosphere, we can face a huge amount of drag from the atmosphere itself. So it tends to follow some one retrograde trajectory only. It does not want to move around because of that air pushing and all those things. So yep, that is the thing. And if you wonder why do we have those grid in those fins, well, the answer is simple. The simple answer is that those are not the drag brakes, but the grid fins which they have to maneuver the spacecraft from those ends. So that's why they have those grid structure, and that also allows the air to pass through it, otherwise it could damage the structure, right? If they have not the holes in it, the air couldn't pass through it. Or so, you know, the pivots or the yes, the mainly the pivots have to have be more strong so as to accommodate that force which it will be facing. So yeah, and the grid, otherwise if normal drag brakes are there, they won't be able to do much of the maneuverability as the grid fins are capable of. So yeah, that was a thing which could be talked about. Yes, Octagraber, Dark Knight TV 8137, yes, this was cool indeed. Now we can very well see the views from the space. This is the view from the second stage, and now I think we don't have the I think this is the part where the sun is not there. And okay, so guys, let me just throw some facts about low Earth orbit to you guys. We do have some time and we can talk about something, so let me just throw some facts about the low Earth orbit. So first of all, if you don't know, there is something what we call micrometeoroids in the low Earth orbit, and you know, those are the things which can damage your spacecraft like hell. I mean, micrometeoroids, as the name suggests, are the very bullet sized meteoroids traveling at very high speed, and we don't even know whether the orbit in which they are traveling is the retrograde or the prograde. If it is prograde, I mean, yeah, the relative velocity could be less, and hence if one of those hits also, then also there is not a big problem, because the spacecraft or any satellites indeed are designed to manage those micrometeoroids hits, because they can't be predicted, because they are in the space, and in the space there are so many things happening, and we don't know whether one of those micrometeoroid was traveling in interstellar space and suddenly got captured inside the Earth. The radar system could not capture those small objects, so we have to be prepared for that. And if the orbit is retrograde, which simply means it is not the orbit which is followed by most of these satellites, so it is the orbit in which it goes into the opposite direction. If considered like this, for this one, they are going from east to west, right, in the direction where the Earth rotates, right? So east to west, is it I don't remember, is it east to west, right? Okay, so let me just say like this: in the direction in which the Earth rotates, the satellites and the rockets usually follow that direction, because they get one initial boost in that horizontal direction when they leave the Earth. Okay, so that's why they get that boost, and hence they have to, you know, expel some less delta V, otherwise they would have to get some more. And in the retrograde orbit, it's just the opposite, in which they go in the opposite direction in which the Earth is rotating, and hence they have to have more delta V to achieve the same. So that is the thing. And in the retrograde orbit, obviously, if you are going in a retrograde orbit and it is 7.9 kilometers per second, for a prograde orbit, retrograde also takes around that much only, that much orbital velocity only, the 7.9 kilometer per second. And the relative velocity concept suggests that whenever the two objects will hit each other in which they are going in opposite direction, the speeds will add up. So let's just assume one object is moving in prograde orbit at 8 km, other micrometeoroid is moving in a retrograde in 8 km per second. So the thing is, the micrometeoroid will actually hit the spacecraft or the satellite at 16 kilometers per second, and that could cause a one hell of a damage to the spacecraft. So those are some things which are not predictable, and we do they you know, design the vehicles to manage that, but ultimately it is not predictable. Although we can very much predict what are the usual orbits in which the meteoroids exist in, so we can avoid those orbits. So that's how it works. So I don't know, I just remember one you know, what should I say, riddle or something like that right now, and I would like to ask you. I don't know, I have asked you in this channel or not, but since we all know the space stuff, so it would be a good question to ask. I don't know, I don't remember if I have asked or not. So let me just ask you this thing. Okay, yes, Shashank, they said they can be imagined by the trains colliding in the opposite direction. Not colliding, the passing, the trains passing in the opposite direction. You can very well feel the speed to be very high of the other train. So anyways, so my question was, okay, so you are sitting, you actually board one helicopter from India, okay, and I don't know whether I've asked this question or not. You consider you board one helicopter from India, you just take off from the ground in the vertical direction, you stay there for around 9.5 hours or so, let the earth rotate from below, and then you land on America. And why have I chosen America only? Because there is a certain time gap of around 9.5 hours. So you have to tell me whether this is possible or not, whether this scenario is possible or not. You just take off from the helicopter, stay there for 9.5 hours or so, and then when the earth rotates from below, you just land on another spot of the earth. You have to tell me whether it is possible or not. This was one of the question which you certainly came to my mind when I was just thinking about the world, thinking about my life, and suddenly this question came up. So yeah. Shashank Desai says no, because we have velocity in the horizontal direction also. Okay, anybody else would like to try? Not. Labret says oh, first of all, guys, tell me whether have I asked this question on this channel or not. I don't remember though, but I think I haven't asked it. So Labret says not. Anyone else wants to try? Okay. So I think we have the answer here. With respect to the center of the earth, we are still moving with the speed of the earth. Blair Huffy says not. Shashank says no. And yes, Shashank, you are very much right. What that is the reason which you have given. Newton's first law of motion. Yes, Shashank, that's what you know. You can ask this question to any normal people which does not know about the space stuff and all those things. You can ask those people, and they will probably say, why do we not use this thing? Why do we have to take flights and all those things? You can just simply do this and land on America. Otherwise, from India to America, it takes around 16 hours for a flight, but it will take around only 9.5 hours. So yeah, the answer is that only, which Shashank Desai said no, because we have velocity in the horizontal direction. So as what we did, we boarded the helicopter and took off in the vertical direction. That's it. We didn't do anything with the horizontal direction, and we know that the earth is rotating at the revolutions, 1 rotation per day. So because of that, if we just go up and stay there, we will be staying there for eternity if we have that much of fuel or not. Because when we are taking off, we are not applying any force in the horizontal direction, and since we are not applying any force in the horizontal direction, the motion in the horizontal direction should stay the same. The Newton's first law of motion, anything which is in motion should remain in motion until and unless some external force is applied on it. So since there is no external force in the horizontal direction in which the earth is rotating, so that's why the helicopter will also have that horizontal velocity in it, and hence you will just stay above that spot, and you will never tend to, you know, when the earth rotates from below and land in America. That will not be possible. Otherwise, just remember, if that is not the case, if you just jump from the ground, you are there in the air for around 1 to 2 seconds, right? From in 1 to 2 seconds, the earth must have rotated some bit of it, and you could have like landed or crashed somewhere outside of your homes or something like that. And if I'm not wrong, it is like 1.6 kilometers per second, the rotation of the earth, or 1600 kilometer per hour. I don't remember, but that is how the what is the speed of the rotation of the earth. So that is pretty large, pretty huge. So we can very well expect whenever we jump, we could for just 2 seconds only we can travel 1 to 2 kilometers. So whenever we have to travel, we can just simply jump and you will be able to get onto the other destination. So yeah, that is the case. A similar question I came up in childhood. I thought if we were to throw a ball vertically upwards in a moving train, it will move backwards with respect to us. Okay, yeah, this is a common misconception with the every child has, when you know. And because this, why is it a common misconception? Because whenever we throw something out of the train, it tends to go backwards, and the reason is not because the train is moving in the other direction. The reason is the air. The air tends to have its drag effects on it, and that's why it tends to move in the other direction. Otherwise, if we just do this experiment in vacuum, it will just fall down the down to the earth. That's it. Whenever we throw something out of the train, considering that the train is moving in a constant velocity. So yeah. Non-inertial frame, yes, Shashank, you are very well to the point today. Okay, so this was very much about the things which I used to think in my childhood, or now also these kind of things happen. Okay, so one more interesting thing which I could if you have or have not, okay, let me just ask this question. Whenever you switch on your TV and view some channel, this is not related to space or rocket science, you sometimes see certain kind of numbers on the screen, right, which randomly appears, 0 FEA 1 2 3, something like that. Have you ever wondered what is the purpose of those numbers? That would play hell with the space elevators, Blair. yes. All the space elevators is a thing right now. I mean, could be made, could not be made, but right now it is a thing which we can only think of in sci-fi. But whenever, if space elevator thing is possible and we are able to make that, then it would really make some access to the space very, 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 very inexpensive. I mean, you don't even have to you won't stay in the orbit, you won't get into the orbit, but you can get to the space, and you can very much save on all the delta V which is wasted to just because of the gravity, because of the air drag and all those things. So yeah. Copyrights, my dear Shashank, you know everything, I think so, right? Yep. Shashank, you are right on this thing also. So these are for the copyrights. I mean, whenever those numbers appear, those the you know, the role of those numbers is to ensure there is no infringement to the copyrights of the owner of the channel or something like that. Because if someone is filming the episode or something like that and posted on the YouTube, you can, from the numbers, you can actually very much track who the person was, because those numbers are randomly generated and are unique and to one particular recipient. So yeah, we can very well track you in case some kind of a big copyright infringement you did. So those are the numbers. If though they appear, you know now why do they appear, what is the role of them. Yes, Shashank. Exactly. Okay. We have this thing. So what should we do now? My sister uses an educational app which is paid and has recorded videos. Okay. I mean, the pay after paying something, I would very much like to have live interaction also. Okay. Sure. Sure, Shashank. Now what should we do? Should we play some KSP or anything you would like to see? Hmm. Okay, I think we can watch that fairing video which SpaceX released, and we can get a look at the view when the fairing is falling back to the earth. Just a sec. Where is it? I can't find it right now. So okay, guys, do you know if SpaceX have some plans for the reusability of the second stage for the Falcon 9? Talk about 10, 11, 15. Srini Hari says yes, KSP. Talk about an 11, 15. SN 11 to 15. What do you mean? Oh yeah, SN 11 to 15. Okay, we can talk about that. What I was talking about, this recovery of the second stage for the Falcon 9. Have you ever considered whether Elon Musk has considered doing that? I mean, Elon has had some plans for the second stage recovery also in the past. He wanted to make the Falcon 9 fully reusable, uh, but he realized that it would be very difficult and it could it will require some uh, big design changes to the second stage, and hence he didn't go with the idea for recovering the second stage. But he wanted to make a fully reusable rocket, and hence he made another rocket which is so huge and is fully reusable, which is the Starship. And talking about the SN15, as Srini Hari says, uh, we do have a flight tomorrow. We do have a flight tomorrow for SN15, and that this SN15 will have major design changes, major technical changes also to the engines and all those things. So this is a block 2 version. Everything which you were seeing, the SN11, SN8 to SN11, all those things were the block 1 version, and now this is the block 2, which means they have iterated on the design issues which they faced with the block 1 version, and now they have corrected all of them, and now they have made everything, redesigned everything, and SN15 we have it here. So SN15 has major design changes. If you have seen the images, you will also find that SN15 has those thermal TPA, the thermal protection system. Those tiles are also very much on those SN15. So that is the case here. Yes, Shashank, but I guess Marcus House or someone was telling we might not have a flight till SN15. Yes, we till SN12 was the last one, and sorry, SN11 was the last one, if I'm not wrong. Then the other version, SN12, SN13, 14 were not there. It was all of those were scrapped, and now we have the SN15, which has major design changes. and hence the possibility of it being fully recovered and landing on the first go kind of reduces also and increases also. If you just the SN15 is a better product than SN11 because it's a block 2 version of the Starship, so it's a better product. Considering that it's a better product, it also have some design changes. So since it is a better product, it increases the chances of success, but since it has design changes, that also decreases the chances of success. So we'll have to see what happens tomorrow and whether they will be able to recover it fully and not just any explosion just after the landing. So till now they have had around 4 launches, and all of these launches were at the last time, means at the last they were not able to recover any of the booster, any of the Starship. So I would love to see Starship standing on the launch pad and to remain on the landing pad, and to remain on the landing pad for some time. And after that the crane comes, takes it to the I don't know where it will take it, but to analyze the Raptors and all those things, because they need that data. They actually need that data of the in-flight, what happens to the vehicle. They are not able to get that. They are just, right now what they are doing is mitigating all the issues which could happen because of which are happening whenever they are doing something. The Raptor, the major issues which I have seen right now is the pressure issue on the header tanks, as well as some issues with the Raptors. So otherwise the aft and the RCS is working very much fine right now, and yeah, those does not seem to have any issue. But the Raptor, the relight of the Raptor, the flipping bun as they say, that is causing issues. So we'll have to see how they will manage that. Although we could very well see some changes in the flight profile also. We can suspect that, but we don't know whether it will happen or not. But yeah, that is the case. And talking about the data, yeah, I was talking about the data which they will get after they recover the Starship, because that is very much important. They need to analyze the heat shield specifically. Whatever they are doing, they are not able to analyze the heat shields at all. The thing which they are putting in, and they need to know how much wear and tear was in the heat shield, so that they can be sure of whether the heat shields are working fine or not. So they have to see that. Otherwise they have to see any other damage to the Starship as a structure itself, the wings, whether they are ready for the next flight or not, the internal structure, as well as the main part, the main component are the Raptors, whether they are whether they are possible, or you can say they are eligible for the next flight or not, or whether they have got some any wear and tear because of the flight. They will have to see that. Till next week was supposed to happen tomorrow. Is it till next week now? Just a sec. Nope, it is still on for the May 6th, which means tomorrow. Okay, and talking about, let me just give you some updates on the things which are happening in the space world. So China recently launched their core module, the Tianhe space station's core module, and they were successful on it. And interestingly, very interestingly, we actually saw some proposed experiments on the Chinese space stations from India. This was a very interesting finding which was broadcasted. I mean, it was obviously not from ISRO, but from the other educational institutes, mainly IITs and ICERs, if I'm not wrong. And they proposed some experiments in the China's space station. So that was one thing which actually standed out. Otherwise, isn't the heat shield data from Crew Dragon used in SN is not relatable? No, they are not. If I'm not wrong, the SN, the heat shield material in Starship is very much different than what we have in the SN 5 means the Crew Dragon. I don't know whether the heat shield material is radiative. So okay, so there are two type of heat shields which are there. One is radiative, the other is the ablative. So for the ablative version, what happens, it takes up all the heat and evaporates. The material actually takes up all the heats and evaporates in the process, and hence keeping the structure or the capsule safe and insulated from the thermal shocks. For the radiative, what happens, it just radiates the heat. Since we can very well see that Starship needs to be reusable, and seeing the color of the thermal protection system as black, I think it is radiative in nature. I don't think so it is thermal ablative material which they are using in the Starship. And the reason is simply that they have to reuse it again, right? And they can't just replace those tiles on it within some time. The replacement of those tiles will take time. Hence they must have gone through the radiative track, in which they don't have to replace anything, just ensure that those tiles are working fine, and that's it. No wear and tear of the material on those things. A shuttle also used this configuration. There was no ablator. Those tiles were not ablative, but just these radiative. So yeah, that is the thing. Oh, okay. Shashank. Sure. So what I was talking about.
Position of signal, Diego Garcia.
So the Starlink is right now, you can see it is right now in the Indian Ocean, over the Indian Ocean, not in the Indian Ocean, over the Indian Ocean. And okay, so yeah, I was talking about the space updates. China launched their space station, the core module of the space station, although that's just the core module, and the completion of the space station, the China space station, is slated in by the end of 2022. So it will be the fastest space station ever built till now. ISS took around 10 years for it to be built fully, so it would be very interesting to see. What else? Yeah, the China space station is actually 1/5 the size of ISS. It is not as big as ISS, but yeah, considering that it is actually built by just one country, it is kind of good. Okay, so talking about this launch only, this launch was done by the Long March 5B rocket. And interestingly, this rocket, the Long March 5B rocket, does not have a second stage. Okay, so this is a 1.5 stage to the orbit. This is not SSTO. This is 1.5 stage to the orbit, in which they have the 4 side boosters and then the core stage. No second stage as such. So the booster stage is there, the core stage is there. So after the booster depletes their fuel, the boosters are jettisoned as usual, and then the core stage is just goes to the orbit. So just because they don't have the second stage, we have a very big core stage in the orbit right now, and it does not fall back to the earth. It stays in the orbit. And yeah, that is the thing. It is in the orbit. As well as what I have to say is that China currently does not have any active deorbiting capability, and because of that we don't know when that booster stage will re-enter the atmosphere, because obviously the drag will do its work, and it will slow the vehicle down, and eventually it will fall back to the earth. But they don't have any control from on to where it will fall, and because they don't have any active deorbiting capability. So because of that, you know, the booster stage uncontrollably enters the atmosphere, and we don't know where it will land. So that is the concern which everyone is right now talking about the booster stage. It is not like a very small stage, the small second stage. It's a big core stage, 18-ton big core stage. So it's a bit of a concern, and I think they are working on that. I think so, because this is a thing which they need to resolve as soon as possible, because if something goes bad in this regard, that will actually jeopardize the whole China's space exploration, and obviously they would not want that. So I hope that they will correct it, and they will have the deorbiting capability for the booster stage also, because that is a bit of an issue there. If you don't, Blair Heffy says, if you don't mind, where are you, and a little background, this is very informative, thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Blair Heffy. Blair Heffley, okay. Actually, the thing is, I'm a rocket science and space technology enthusiast, and I just watch the videos and take some courses on the space exploration, human space flights and all those, and just gather all the information that I get, and whatever information I get, I like to share with all of you guys. So that is the case, and you will find that whenever I stream, I tend to throw up some space facts or some facts like these onto my streams. So if you liked it, thank you so much. And yeah, that is the thing. My hall ticket number was also displayed on monitor during mains to prevent cheating. Okay, Shashank, although the mains have now been the May one, the May J mains has been postponed, right? If I'm not wrong, yeah. Yeah, what I was talking, that they don't have any deorbiting capability. So China, if I'm not wrong, yeah, I am not wrong actually on this regard. The China is actually sitting on a time bomb waiting to detonate. That is the case right now. I mean, if for some reason, and if God forbid that does not happen, but if that happens, that the core stage actually just falls onto US specifically, that could cause some serious issues with the US and China's relations. Although right now also they are not very good, but then also that kind of a thing can do some serious damage.
We had a successful liftoff at 3:01 p.m. Eastern Time from pad 39A in Florida. Successfully recovered our first stage for the 9th time, and we're awaiting the relight of our second stage engine for second engine start number 2, coming up just in a couple of seconds. This burn is going to be a very short burn, just 1 second, and that will help raise our apogee and perigee into the payload deployment orbit. So listening out here for the callouts. Hopefully we'll get a shot of the second stage's engine for that ignition.
We have the SES2, we have the seco 2. We didn't get the shot though. Oh, okay, we got the shot.
Short pulse you can see on your screen there. Second engine start number 2 and seco 2. Navigation officer will see how our orbit ended up.
Nominal payload deploy orbit insertion.
Fantastic. So with that, we have another 15 minutes or so to this coast phase before we deploy our Starlink satellites into orbit. Now, during this 15-minute period, the second stage will begin a small spin along its central axis. That's to give those Starlink satellites enough momentum to space themselves out shortly after payload deployment. So while we're getting ready for payload deploy, sit back, enjoy the space tunes, and we'll see you back here at T+1 hour and 3 minutes, 30 seconds for payload deployment.
Okay, so that was the case. Sorry. We saw the booster, the second stage light up for the second time, and this couldn't light up the second time if they didn't have the T-tab and the engine relight capability. Because they have this, so that's why they can do these kind of maneuvers. Okay, So talking about the second stage relight, guys, you know that in space we are in free fall. There is no as such thing that there is no gravity. There is gravity. There is gravity at all times. Wherever you go, there will be some kind of gravity. So when we are orbiting the Earth, we are actually having some gravity, but having the gravity, some not. We are having the gravity, but the thing is, we are in a free fall around the Earth. And what do I mean by that? So okay, if I have to explain how this free fall kind of a thing works, consider we are moving in a horizontal direction. We just consider something that you have some super arm. Okay, you just threw a stone at 8 kilometers per second in the horizontal direction. So because the Earth is not flat, it is round. So because of that, by every 8 kilometers the Earth dips by 5 meter, because it's not flat, right? So we have launched something, we have thrown a stone at 8 kilometers per second. So by every 8 kilometers the Earth will dip by 5 meter. Okay, so since the Earth has dipped by 5 meters, there will be no surface there to hit the Earth. Okay, so that's why at 8 kilometers it just goes straight, and the by in 1 second it has to dip around 5 meters. Okay, so since the Earth is also has dipped around 5 meters, so there is no Earth there, if you are getting what I'm trying to say. So that's why it just tends to go around and round the Earth, and hoping to find some surface, but it does not find any surface because of that curvature. The Earth tends to dip and dip and dip, and that's how the orbit works. So yeah, and talking about in the orbit, so we don't have we are in free fall, and we don't have as such gravitational force there. So that whenever these kind of engines restarts, now they tend to have some ullage motors or something like that. In case of second stage of the Falcon 9, we have the RCS thrusters. So before lighting up the engines, the RCS thrusters comes into action and pushes the second stage in the forward direction, so as to direct all the fuel in the tank in the backward direction. Otherwise it will be just floating inside the fuel tank. So this is the thing which happens before relighting the engines in space. They have to ensure that all of the fuel is going into the fuel lines in the backward direction. So that's why they have those RCS thrusters firing just before the ignition, which ensures that the fuel is in the backward direction. And once we have the engine ignition, obviously the engine is applying the force, so the fuel is always in the backward direction, and we don't need RCS thrusters. So yeah. Yes, Shashank Desai, you are right. The Earth trying to pull it, but it is missing each time it is being pulled. Exactly, it dips by 5 meter, but Earth also dips by 5 meter. The stone dips by 5 meter, the Earth also dips by 5 meter. So there is no Earth at that time, and hence it just goes round and round and round. How much thrust used back there few moments ago? Shrini Hari asked. Thrust as in from the RCS or from the engine? Because thrust actually depends on the maximum thrust we can always tell in the fully fueled configuration. You know, we have that thing in written in all those engine configuration and in engine specifications, but those thrust tend to increase as the fuel depletes because the mass decreases. So that is the case. Wow, what an analogy. Beautiful analogy, Shashank. Exactly my point. Just like you are sitting on a donkey and you hold a stick with a carrot and showing it from front end, it wants to get it and moves, but the carrot also moves, so ultimately it does not get the carrot. To the point, very well explained. Yup. Exactly, I got what were you trying to say, and yes, that's how the free fall kind of things works in space. So talking about the thrust increases as the the fuel depletes because the mass decreases, and now it has to push. The force remains the same, but the mass has since decreased, so hence the total thrust increases. The grasshopper. Okay, so yeah, that's how it makes those thrusting things work. Okay guys, I have this question for you. Forget about the liquid fuel engine. We know that the liquid fuel engine does not tend to give any kind of residue as such, but we know that the solid rocket booster tend to give so much residue. So for the third stage, consider the third stage is getting into the orbit, and that is the this solid rocket booster. Okay, the solid rocket motor is there in the third stage, and since solid rocket motor tends to give out actually the actual components of the solid, so when it is pushing all those solid particles out of the nozzle, do they get into the orbit or do they fall back to the earth? With this third stage, what actually happens? Can you tell me? Bai Chang, I didn't get you, Blair. But yeah, so my question, if you didn't get it, I must repeat it. I was saying for a solid rocket motor, the third stage is supposed to get into the orbit. Since it is a solid rocket motor, it will throw out solid particles from the back of the nozzle. So my question is, will that solid particles remain in the orbit considering there is no as such atmospheric drag, or will they fall back to the earth? It is actually a good question which we have to see, because what actually is happening is that since solid rocket particles, or the solid particles are moving in the backward direction, it is exerting force in the forward direction. So technically speaking, it should fall back to the earth because it is actually moving in the backward direction. Or does it go into a retrograde orbit? I mean, that is not possible, but considering the speed of the particles at the speed which they are coming out of the nozzle, can they go into a retrograde orbit? This is a question which I right now just thought about and seems to be a very interesting one. Yes, Shashank, the velocity of the particle is the key thing here. It can also go into a retrograde orbit, and if it goes into a retrograde orbit, that means they need to track the particles also, because small things tend to destroy the spacecraft entering into the orbit, and since in a retrograde it just tends to add up the speed. Wow, I just realized that this is a good question, and I have to do some research for this thing. Labrat, see, the thing is, it is not in the orbit, it is going to fall exactly, but can it go into a retrograde orbit? Because obviously the spacecraft is going into a prograde orbit, which is in the same direction as of the earth, but since the particles are moving in the opposite direction, so will those particles end up in a retrograde orbit? And considering those particles are very small, the atmospheric drag will also not, I mean, there will be some atmospheric drag, but I don't think so it will be very significant to stop them all. Yes, retrograde. See, the thing with the moon is very interesting, Shashank. If you just made me remember one thing which I was thinking like this only, and I actually end up researching it and find out that actually that is a thing. So when you are landing on the moon, right, what happens? We are firing the engine down to the surface. Okay, so when we fire engine down to the surface and considering the velocity of the particles coming out of the engine, it tends to hit the sand, tends to hit the sand and makes them in motion, right? So that sand particles can also go into the orbit because of the velocity of the particles hitting the sand. So I should not say sand, but regolith, the lunar regolith, it can very well go into orbit just by landing onto the surface. So this is a thing which actually was not considered during the Apollo era, and which they find out that yes, this kind of thing happens and it can potentially damage the orbiters also. So yeah, that is the thing. So yeah, space is very interesting and very complex and very mysterious. We don't know much about space right now. We just simply knows the basic stuff, the orbital mechanics and all those things, but we don't know the complex stuff, and we don't know what will happen during on a certain planet or so. So yep, that is the thing. Ah, okay. No, Blair Hafley, they are not talking about, I think they are not talking about that grasshopper. They are talking about Falcon 9 grasshopper, if I'm not wrong. Yes, Shashank. These small kind of things, initially people don't take into consideration because obviously they don't know that such things exist. But when you think about these things, they very well exist, and they tend to destroy the spacecraft in the orbit. So the orbiter tends to have actually needs to have some certain orbit, or then it needs to change its orbit to avoid any potential collision with the particles. So yeah, still I have to research that retrograde orbit of the solid particles. If it is in the retrograde orbit, the solid particles in the retrograde orbit does not seem to be a good idea though. So we'll have to see what actually happens there, because it can very well cause issues with the incoming spacecraft or the incoming rocket for the next launch. I don't think so. They tend to decay very quickly because these are very small particles and they tend to remain in the orbit. I'll have to research about it. See, Shashank, whenever I have time to say something like these, and I have the information at the same time, and I remember that information at the same time, I tend to give that. Usually in my streams, what happens, I don't talk much, which I want to talk, because I actually want you also to listen what is happening in the actual webcast. So I don't talk much, but I like to talk about space, and I can go on talking about space like for eternity. So that is the thing, and whatever information I have, I tend to give it up to you for yeah. Share the results with us in the next live. Okay, for sure. Shini Hari, the next live is probably tomorrow only, the SN15 flight. So we'll see. But if we use RCS thruster just like SpaceX Lunar Starship, that would solve the issue. Those are not RCS thruster. I don't think so. Those are RCS thruster, Shashank. Those could be the landing engine. See, the thing with the what you are doing, right? If you place the engines on the above section of the Starship, what actually you are doing? You are actually just increasing the plume area so that the pressure which is exerted onto the lunar regolith, it decreases, and hence the force also decreases. So when you are actually having the engines on the upper side of the rocket, so you are actually letting the time for the plumes to spread in the all direction, and hence decreasing the possibility of creating the crater down below. So that's how those things works. RCS, I don't think so, Shashank. RCS could work on moon. I mean, yeah, moon has 1/6 the gravity of Earth, but still it has gravity, and RCS does not seem to, you know, be very much powerful. And also, see, the thing is, you need to have certain thrust. You need to have certain thrust to slow down yourself and land onto the moon. It does not matter you use RCS or you use liquid fuel engines. The thing which matter is the force, and the force if it is a big vehicle it will be much more, and if it is a small vehicle which is landing onto the lunar surface it will be less. So that force which is hitting onto the lunar regolith matters, that impulse, that pressure. So that matters, and that couldn't be you know, mitigated by changing the speed, because other, if you just change the speed or change the thrust of the engines, that will eventually means that you are changing the thrust obviously, and hence you are not able to decrease your speed fully. So yeah. Oh, knowing a lot. Oh, okay. Yeah, Brad, I thought that was
Welcome back
okay.
to
We
our
are
live
back,
webcast
guys.
for our Starlink mission, and we're close to the end of today's mission. We had an on-time liftoff at 3:01 p.m. Eastern Time, successfully recovered our first stage booster, and our second stage, which you can see on your screen now, had 2 successful ignitions and shutdowns of its Merlin vacuum engine. Coming up shortly, we'll see payload deployment of the Starlink satellites. Now, during the 15 minutes since our last burn, the second stage has picked up a small rotation intentionally to help us separate out the satellites after payload deployment. And once the satellites have separated from the spacecraft, they will continue on with the rest of their mission, ultimately ending up in an operational orbit about 550 kilometers above the Earth.
And we have the
Fantastic
deployment.
shot of the payload separating away with the horizon of planet Earth.
Wow.
So shortly from here, the Starlink satellites will deploy their solar arrays, and then over the next few days and weeks, they'll use
See the
their
reflection of the
onboard
sunlight
ion thrusters to make their way into an operational orbit.
onto the Starlink satellites. Although I think that is a
And
camera
that's going to
flare which we
bring our
have.
webcast coverage to a close. We want to give a big thanks to the Range and the Federal Aviation Administration for supporting today's mission. Now, if you're interested in Starlink service, head on over to starlink.com to find out more details. Thank you so much for joining us, and may the 4th be with you.
Okay. So today's stream was a bit more informative. I mean, I have actually, you know, used many technical terms which I don't use much, but yeah, I think I could use those things today. So yeah, this is the this was the thing which I was talking about, guys. The view from inside the SpaceX fairing. This could be it. So this shot was taken from the fairing view, and we can just after the separation we can see the second stage firing and second stage going with the payload of the Starlink satellites. There we have the second stage, and this is the video of the fairing. This is how it looks like. The thing which you are right now seeing is the effects of the plume which the second stage is actually hitting, and obviously the RCS which is actually tends to you know, orient the fairing. This is a very beautiful view which you can get here. Entering into the atmosphere now, you can see the mark effects. Wow. So this was the video about that. I prefer live long and prosper, Mr. Spock, right? Okay, so I think now we can end this stream, guys, and until then I think we can meet, we will meet tomorrow with the SN15 flight, and hopefully I can give you some info about the design changes. As much research I can do, I'll try to do that. And yeah, if you like the stream, give it a like and subscribe if you're new to this channel. And if you want to support me in what I do, the Patreon link is down in the description. You can very well become a Patreon. Otherwise, yes, Shashank Desai, it is coming up shortly. I think I can say that it is coming up shortly, and such things more. Yes, it is coming up shortly. It is in the making, and you will see that announcement soon. So thank you so much. Until then, this is Priyanshu Roila. You just saw Rocket Gyan. Stay safe, stay healthy, and the fourth be with you.